Hello and welcome to Success Tips Global. Today is September the 3rd, 2022. My name is Everett Ofori and I'm speaking from Tsukuba, Japan. Today I'm speaking with a multi-talented person living here in Japan, and I want to find out how he's been able to achieve some of his goals. Welcome to Success Tips Global, Mr. Matthew Ownby.
It's good to be here. Thank you.
Okay, so first of all, please tell us what you are doing, what you do in your life right now.
Okay, so right now I basically do mainly presentation for mainly engineers, and I also do technical translations for a very large global telecommunication company, as well as teach engineers some technical topics that are relevant for their particular work.
Okay, so let's go back to your childhood. When you were a child, what did you really want to become?
Oh, when I was a child, I really wanted to work for NASA. So that was like one of the major goals. I was really interested in building things and working with the space program, because the space program was always very fascinating for me.
And you did eventually work at NASA. So please tell us
Yes.
about the pathway. How did you achieve that?
Oh, well, what happened is that there was a professor at the university that I was attending, and he said that he knew someone who could provide an internship with a vendor that worked for NASA, and it was anybody interested. And I raised my hand. I told him, like, I would like to at least try to internship at this particular company. And so what happened is, over the summer, the vendor basically gave me a project. They had a device that they weren't sure how to fix. So it's like, here's a device, here are the older stuff, figure it out. And what ended up happening is, over the summer, I figured it out and I saved them a bunch of money. And so I was able to basically continue with the internship for the remainder of my college experience, and then got a job through the vendor to actually work at Houston Space Center for a while.
Okay, so I would like us to talk a little bit more about that, but let's focus on your university experience.
Okay,
Were
sure.
there any challenges in that?
Oh, well, I mean, university is pretty difficult. So there were a lot of challenges in just keeping up with the material. So I had to study quite a bit just to, be on the same level as everyone else. So basically that.
Okay, and then let's talk about NASA.
Okay.
My image is that there are so many smart people at NASA.
Oh,
How was
yes.
the experience there for you?
It was really a fascinating experience because, one of the most like amazing people that I had worked with was someone who was a practicing doctor and an engineer. So this guy was very good at both medicine and technical stuff. And, I was surrounded by people like that all the time. So, you get kind of the experience here. There was a whole bunch of smart people, and it's like, am I smart enough? Can I actually manage to, continue? And you get this whole situation of imposter syndrome. So, it's kind of a challenge, so to speak. So I had to, maintain, at least try to contribute the best I could in the way that I could.
Okay. So now you're in the communication business.
Yes.
Can you tell us about how you developed yourself to the point where you are training people to become better communicators?
Okay, so when I first graduated, well, actually, when I was in college, one of the things that was kind of very clear to me is that you need to be able to deliver a message or a presentation clearly, and especially in the technical area, people are very interested in things, not having to communicate with people as much. So I actually joined Toastmasters, and I've been since I am still in it now. So for a very long time, using that as kind of a testing board for how to properly deliver presentation and speeches to a general audience. And also, of course, I took other courses. I did a lot of stuff. I even taught on the side, not professionally. I did that for maybe more than five-ish years or so, just so that when you teach, you actually learn a lot just by teaching. Because sometimes you think you know it, and then when you actually try to explain it to someone else, it's like, I don't know it as well as I thought I did. So there's been a lot of experience in that as well.
And what's the impetus for focusing on engineers right now?
So for engineering, basically because I'm an engineer at heart. I like engineering. I like technical stuff, and I like dealing with those types of people. And every time it's like I look at these people who have to communicate to their bosses or they have to communicate to their clients. For example, pre-sales people. It's very important, but they're not very good at it. They're very good at giving a lot of technical jargon. And so I've always been focusing on that particular aspect. There's not very many people who can do it well, or, people who both have good presentation communication skills and technical chops. You need both in order to actually move forward. And if you don't have both, it's kind of difficult.
Mm. Okay, I also know that you are an expert on the Japanese language. You've given a TEDx talk in Japanese.
Yes, that's true.
And many people find the Japanese kanji very difficult, but
Yes.
also you are one of the best in the kanji. So please tell us, how did you develop that level of high skill in the kanji?
Okay, so uh, basically, kanji characters have been a fascinating thing for me for a very long time, and the typical way of going about it is to just kind of brute force memorization. And there's like a whole lot of characters. There's no way you can actually brute force your way through it. I mean, it can take a long time, and you can do it, but I remember reading a book about if you're having a difficult situation where you're trying to take a big problem, you need to break it down into smaller steps. And when I was reading that, I was like, that could actually work for characters as well. I mean, kanji characters are made of what are called radicals, or parts of the Chinese characters themselves. And these characters repeat across very different characters. So it's like if you remember the parts, then you can go, okay, how do I remember a way to arrange them in a particular order so that I can actually write them out quicker? And that's kind of the thing I developed, a process to develop by actually remembering the order and creating a kind of a simple story for me to remember. Then it was very easy to write it. Now, technically, that might not be like the right way to write it in a particular order because Japanese are a little bit anal retentive about that part. But it's like for me, I was able to remember a lot of kanji characters in a very short period of time. I mean, it only took me maybe 2 years ago, 2 years to actually acquire the second level of the kanji proficiency exam, which is an exam that native Japanese people take, and it's not the highest, but it's pretty high as far as anyone knows. So.
I've watched your TEDx talk several times, and it's really impressive. How did you prepare for that particular speech?
Okay, so how I prepared is pretty simple. So first of all, I kind of wrote a couple of topic ideas that I wanted to talk about. And then from there, I basically wrote out everything that I wanted to talk about the topic. And then from there, I was like, okay, I only have this amount of time. So what actually is relevant and what is not relevant? What is like, the meat and what is like, extra that may go off in a tangent. And then so I reduced that. And then from there, I just kind of created a simple outline. And then I posted this on simple pieces of paper and put the pieces of paper on the wall.
Okay.
And then when looking at that, I was like, okay, does this make sense? Because then I generally, when I want to create a presentation, for example, in the case of the TEDx talk, I was like, I already know who my audience is. So in this particular case, most of the people are college students, late college students. And these are people, half of them are foreigners and half of them are native Japanese speakers. So I wanted to create a topic and a talk that would be interesting to them, as well as encouraging them with any difficult endeavor that they have. So obviously in my case is like I can talk about kanji all day long, but I also wanted to basically connect it to a point like even if they have a difficult subject, you can take this difficult subject, you can break it down and you can make it easier for yourself. And so that any difficult academic challenge that you run into, and there is a way, there is a path, there is a process through it.
Okay, and how many times did you practice before actually giving the speech?
Let's see. I probably practiced it, I would say 30-ish times, more or less. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I also know that you are involved in photography.
Yes.
How did you get started in that?
Photography was like, it was kind of like a situation where I needed an extra hobby because like if you're just practicing, for example, learning kanji or technical stuff. I need something extra to kind of work another part of my creative side. So it's like, I knew a friend who was into photography. It's like, okay, let me try that. And so I got my camera, and then I started messing with it. And it's like, it's very, very interesting, because you could, even though you're looking at the exact same scene, depending on how you actually adjust the camera or the angle or even the lighting and the time of day, you can kind of express yourself in a very, very different way. And it was very fascinating. And, it's something that I actually do enjoy.
Okay.
Mhm.
Now, what are some key decisions you've taken in your life?
Okay, so key decisions. That's very interesting. So one of them was actually, I would have to say, is quitting NASA, because if I just kept through that, it would basically be a technical engineer for the rest of my life. And in that decision, if I look back at it, it's a key decision, but at the time I didn't think too much of it. I mean, basically at the time I had relatives in Japan, and they just, wanted me to help with their English conversation school. So I was like, okay, I'll do that. And what ended up happening is that I kind of enjoyed teaching as a profession. And of course, what that ended up being is, of course, I couldn't do that for, more for a long period of time, because that would end up happening is that I'd be away from my core competency, which was the technical area. So that means that from there, I quit that, and then I moved on to a more technical support and also teaching position, kind of that combination. And I think that is kind of how the general flow of my career has kind of been due to just kind of actually stepping away from a pure engineering point and actually stepping into a teaching role. Another key, I would have to say, was when I actually quit my formal job, which was probably maybe even 3 years ago. So at that point, I had just been someone who has working for a company, or, so doing whatever the manager prefers me to do. I had my own, of course, ideas on what would be a good thing to do. But when you actually kind of step away from that and you're on your own, and you have to do, all the things on your own, all the management, all the administrative and everything like that, that you learn a lot very, very quickly about a lot of things. And I think that's made me stronger and more independent and more resilient than it would have been if I just kind of stayed as, a simple company worker for, an HR department.
And I noticed that you continue to take certifications. Why?
Because basically, even though I learn a lot, I will need to have like some way to affirm that I'm just not, learning things properly. So these are kind of general standards for things. And after a while, it's like, I haven't taken any certification whatsoever for a very long time. So that's probably not a good idea. And I need to make sure that I'm not like, for specializing in one area that's not really useful for some people. So it's kind of a way to affirm that I'm up to where I need to be, and also just kind of check that I know what I'm talking about. Because a lot of times it's like, I can talk about this topic. It's like, well, really? It's like, well, here's my certification. Yeah.
Okay, so this is Success Tips Global. What are your all-time success tips for people who are confused about what to do?
What to do? Well, it's like, from my perspective, if you're really not sure what to do, I always suggest try a lot of small little things, and to find out exactly what works and what doesn't work. And different people have different personalities and different winning patterns is the way I see it. I'm a very analytical guy, so I will actually go and kind of analyze the situation and then try something. But some people are not really good at that type of thing. So some people are good at just trying something, seeing it works, trying something, seeing it works. Don't take big risks. Take a lot of small risks, and then you'll find out what works for you and what doesn't work for you.
Okay. One of my college students took your course, and she was very, very, very impressed with you. So if people are interested in taking any of your classes, where can they find you?
Okay, so they can basically find me at www.komujo.com, and there should be an email address there, and they can, contact me. I think it's info.komujo.com is where they can contact me, or they can just, ping me on Facebook, because I'm usually, available there. And either way really works. And if they have, more inquiries about, they want to learn more about whatever the classes that I offer, or they have some sort of specific request, I'm definitely willing to answer that.
Okay, and my final question is, what advice would you give to a rookie interviewer?
For a rookie interviewer, probably the best thing to do would be to figure out what you want out of the interview in the first place. Like, what kind of questions do you want? If you're dealing with a particular person, you're probably like, this would be interesting, or this would be interesting. But you also want to figure out is like, if you've done your homework, you probably have an idea who you're talking to. So you can figure out like what would be easy to talk about and what would be hard to talk about to avoid some of the awkward silence. And then probably create a couple of questions that you really want to ask, and then follow up with those questions, whatever your interest leads you.
Okay, is there anything you would like to say that I didn't ask you?
Okay. Maybe, no, I can't think of anything. I think you did a really fabulous job in asking me a whole bunch of questions to go over a kind of a variety of places in a reasonably short period of time. So I definitely thought good interview from my point of view.
Thank you very much, Mr. Matthew Ownby.
You're welcome.
Bye for now.
Okay, bye.